Hello everyone, my name is Farzam Fanitabasi. I'm a Ph.D. candidate in TU Delft, and for the next 10-ish minutes I'm going to talk about my research, the motivation behind it, how much I've done, and what I'm planning to do. So before that, a small CV about me. I've did my bachelor and master in IT and computer science. The PhD that I'm doing is titled Distributed Reputation Systems in Participatory Sensing. My research interests are IoT middlewares, designing infrastructures for managing the data, and also graph-based reputation systems. So first off, what is the motivation behind the research that I'm doing? So in the past few days, we have this phenomena that our data collecting capabilities have increased massively. So we have this new, paradigm such as IoT and big data and, cloud storage and cloud computing. But the question remains that with this influx of data collection, how can we make sure that we get valuable insight of that data, given that citizens are actually participants, so they have their voice, they have their vote. So the moment we start talking about citizens, we could go into the paradigm called participatory sensing. In classical definition, it's called sensing application in which participants' intervention is necessary in sensing and sharing. So basically, it usually has three levels. The participants on the lower level of this slide, the fog computing and the fog level, which does not necessarily need to be there, but usually is a part of it, and the cloud. So the participatory sensing is a sort of sensing that users, mobile users, or in a generic term, agents, should be involved in the process of gathering and collecting, and in many cases, processing the data. So we're focusing on what is called participatory sensing in order to involve citizens and users in the whole process of data collection and data processing. Participatory sensing in general has many different usages and domains. It's used for personalized healthcare, traffic monitoring, environmental monitoring, and so on. The thing is, it's not without its flaws. So it's not a perfect package that is done and you can use it and build whatever you want on top of it. It has its own set of problems. But for the research that I'm doing, I will be looking at one thing in particular, so the problem of reputation. Meaning that in such schemes that there are many different parties, they all have their own data, they all have their own privacy preferences, you need to know who to trust and how to even measure trust, and in most fundamental of what it means to trust. Meaning that if you get the data A from a source, should you trust and base your decision and processing on that data or not? In other sense, the names would be like data authenticity. So if you receive a data from a source, how can you make sure that the data is not tampered with? How can you make sure that data is actually what it was measured in the beginning? The other point would be the origin authenticity. So if you receive data A from sensor X, can you make sure that it is actually sensor X that's sending you the data? Or in another term, did sensor X actually measure the data that is saying I'm sending you? The other one would be the transitive trust. The transitive trust means if I trust one person and you trust me, would you naturally trust that person? The question being that what does this mean in the terms of a large-scale system, and how can we even translate it into computer sense? Because we're trying to make it automatic for users to use this data and use this trust without them being involved all the time, because that would be a low and downside. So reputation systems in P2P networks are the exact thing I'm looking for. So the P2P network, there is not a ground up scheme on it. So it's not a top-down predefined set of rules, a predefined set of roles that says this is the center of authority. You can ask them to basically provide you the details. No, the P2P systems, what I'm imagining is as a level playing. So in this level playing, what it means to actually trust people in, given the fact that it is a large-scale network, it is full of sensors that basically collect all manner of data, including the privacy-sensitive ones. So privacy is not an issue. And how can this reputation and this trust be translated into these networks? So for this matter, I'm using a relatively straightforward methodology. So it's been used in the computer science researchers for the longest time now. So it has 5 steps. It starts with the research challenges, the research objectives. The challenges, I mentioned a few. The objectives are defined based on each basically challenge. So that if the challenge is the privacy that we're looking for, how can we make sure that this privacy is preserved in the right manner? So the artifacts will be basically the turning point. The moment you move into artifacts, you have your theoretical background set. Then prototyping and evaluation methods. So this is a very classical methodology on how to do the research. So for this, what I'm planning to do, the steps are first would be the definition. So the definition of participatory sensing is a very, vague one. So it's not set in stone. So first off, you need to define what is participatory sensing, and then you need to define trust and reputation in the context of participatory sensing. So that's when it starts. Then, because we're talking about large-scale algorithm, you need to find the right communication algorithm, a fault-tolerant, decentralized, distributed algorithm. So for this, I'm looking at gossiping protocol and epidemic protocols for communication. Then you need to define what is reputation and how can you do the distributed reputation. There are research on this, of course, but then you need to, again, adapt it to the meaning of participation. So the participation being the key word. Then you need to think of the adaptability and the different aspects of this all definition in a very dynamic world of participatory sensing, because we basically, in order to do it right, you should not put any predefined conditions on how you define a node. Then if the node can be mobile, so it would move from one location to another location. It could opt in or opt out, or even at real time decide how much data they want to share. So after this, I'm going to do prototyping. I've did a bit. So we're coming with a decentralized network for data aggregation and based on gossiping protocol. So it aggregates all the data from different points while preserving privacy, and it's a P2P network. So based on that, we want to build up the reputation system on top of it. Then we would move to evaluation and see how much is it preserved, which parts did we manage to actually get done, and what needs to be more. So in very simple terms, there are 3 main bullet points of what I need to deliver. I need to define reputation in a participatory sensing scheme. I need to define this scheme in order to provide social sensing as a public good. So it's another, basically it's narrowing down. So it's not all participatory sensing, but it should be in social sensing and in order to provide public goods. And at the end, the infrastructure should be able to translate all the trust and reputations that we talk about in a computer sense. So we could basically calculate them in a real time in an automatic manner. That was basically it. If you want to get in contact with me, my contact information are below this video. And I'm looking forward to hearing from you. Thank you.